Hey English 345 students, welcome to week 13. It's pretty hard to believe, but we only have a couple of weeks left before a finals week. So let's go ahead and take a look to see what we are working on in Module 7 next week and what you just wrapped up in Module 6. So like always, we'll go ahead and take a look at our course calendar to see where we've been and where we're headed to. Okay, so this week, let's see, we're going down to the end of language variation and change. So you wrapped up the last few assignments in Module 6 on language variation and change. And you worked on the draft of your final research project, and I look forward to seeing where you all are in the process after looking at them after today, after Sunday the 11th. And that will give you the feedback that you need to work towards the final version of your paper. And then this week we're going to be moving into first language acquisition. In Module 7, we're going to be looking at both first and second language acquisition. They're just put together in one module since both are about acquiring language. One just happens to be acquiring your native language, and the other is your second language if you happen to know an additional language other than your first. Okay, so let's go ahead over to Blackboard and we'll get the details of all of this. All right, so we'll start off just by doing a quick review of what you learned about this week in Module 6. Okay, so looking down past that extra credit assignment, and don't forget this extra credit assignment is still an option for you if you haven't had a chance to do it yet. I'm leaving it open until April 30th, so you can go in anytime before then and just for fun see what this quiz tells you about your own American dialect. I think it's just kind of fun to see if it identifies you correctly. Okay, so this week you learned a little bit about code switching. You had the chance to see this in action in different ways with a politician like Barack Obama, with a multilingual family who code switched just because they had parents speaking different languages, and they also used English out in the world that they were living in. You also explored code switching in different languages. So you looked at code switching as a phenomenon in K-pop, or you chose to look at it as a phenomenon in Spanish and English being spoken together. So, hopefully you saw how fascinating this process is, that even though you might speak a certain language, let's say English is your native language, but you also grew up speaking Spanish as a native language, then you can easily switch between the two and sometimes not even realize it. It's just, both languages are just such a natural part of you that you're so comfortable communicating in both of them. And I've seen my husband do this quite a lot. He's lived in the United States since the 90s, and Spanish is his first language. But when he's speaking with his family, they often throw English terms and expressions into their conversations. So it definitely happens, and it's pretty interesting to observe that. Okay. You learned about, if you chose the Spanglish option, you learned a little bit about Walt Wolfram, who is an American sociologist at North Carolina State University, and he ended up making an appearance in assignment 6.5 also on sociolinguistics and American dialects. So you ended up reading an article called Sociolinguistics by him at the Linguistic Society of America website, and then you did an evaluation based on that. And there was one open-ended question at the end of that quiz where you learned a little bit more about an American dialect of your choice. I think it's kind of hard to imagine sometimes that, yes, English is basically an English-speaking country. That's what the majority of people speak. But alongside that, or intermingled with that English, are lots of other languages and lots of other cultural and linguistic experiences that are important for us to know about. We have a very linguistically diverse country. We just don't always think of it that way. And so I hope you learned a lot by exploring some of those other dialects. The last assignment, you had a couple of choices. You could either explore language endangerment through the Endangered Languages Project. I just think it's really fun to zoom around that map and see all the different languages that are spoken all around the world, and just to learn a little bit about some of them. So I hope you had fun picking a new language and just being able to realize that, hey, that language exists and people speak it and it's almost in danger of extinction. Hey, should we do something about that? So if you chose that option, you got to have fun with that. Or you could have watched the Language Matters documentary, which basically teaches you about the same topic, but in a somewhat more in-depth way. Rather than you doing the research, the film does the research for you, and then you kind of reflect on that. So whichever option you chose, I hope you had fun with it and learned something about the more than 7,000 languages we have spoken on planet Earth. Okay. All right, and as I told you last time, there was this fun couple of resources to explore there about endangered languages at the end of Module 6. Okay, so you just are about to submit the working draft of your research projects. And just to let you know, I know that the final version of your project is due in finals week. And that's going to be Monday, May 3rd when you're submitting that. So between, let's say today is the 11th, by the 25th, I will have all the comments back to everybody for the working draft. It's going to take a little bit of time to go through those, depending on the length of paper that each student submits. So just look out for those comments anytime between submitting it today, the 11th, and the 25th of April. But I will get them back to you as soon as I can. Okay, so now heading into Module 7. All right, so this week you're going to be learning all about how human beings acquire their first language. How do we learn to talk? How do we learn to recognize all of these words, this vocabulary that we have, the ability to carry on a conversation at 5 or 6 years old, and kids can do this already. How does all this happen? So that's what you're going to be learning about this week. Okay, so the first assignment that you are going to be completing this week is simply called Genie. Okay, and in this short documentary, it's like a 12-minute film, you're going to be learning about the case of what's often referred to as a feral child. Jeannie Wiley was a child who was severely abused by her parents. She was kept in a dark room by herself with no interaction with other human beings, basically for almost all of her childhood. And because of that, she just never had the chance to acquire language. And when she was found, she was discovered at age 13, it was kind of past this time that linguists sometimes refer to as the critical period. And linguists often say that around age 12 or 13 is when this ability to acquire language is basically kind of lost. And Jeannie, based on her experience and what you'll learn about in that short film, because she did not have exposure during that window of time, she just wasn't ever able to use language in a meaningful way. She learned a lot of new words. She was able to interact with people a little bit better despite the trauma that she went through. But in the end, she was just never able to use language in the way that a person would use it if they had been exposed to language throughout their entire childhood. So I think it's an interesting way to introduce this topic because you really see the impact of not being exposed to language for all of your childhood. You see the steps that you need to go through to be able to successfully speak and listen and understand your language. So I think it's just a good illustration that leads you then into assignment 7.2. Assignment 7.2 is like more of a traditional college lecture, I would say. In this class, since it's been online, you haven't had so many of those. But I really think this video, which is given by Dr. Martin Hilpert at the University of Neuchâtel in Switzerland, I think he gives this really excellent, comprehensive overview of the field of first language acquisition. I think it's really well done. And I think he explains it in a way that's just engaging. It's a 50-minute lecture, but at the same time, I think he really keeps your attention well and gives good examples and makes the subject clear and easy to understand. So as I recommended here, you can sit down and do the whole 50-minute thing, and once you click on this link, you'll still have access to the video as you go through the different activities that I've given you to go along with the video. I've set it up like a test, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting, just like the other quizzes you worked on in other modules. You can do some, come back to it later. You can do it all in one sitting, but you don't have to. So you can kind of go through this in pieces, or you can do it all at once. It's really up to you. Okay, so as I've told you there, the task is set up as a quiz or test, but the questions ask you to complete different tasks. So there'll be some true false, multiple choice, short answer, and a couple of longer summary response questions with different options. So in one question, for example, I've given you the option to just do a typed summary response to a section of the video, or you could create a short PowerPoint of 2 or 3 slides, or you can even do an audio recording. So you choose the one that works best for you. People learn in different modalities. Some people like to write, some people like to talk, other people are visual and like to put together something that's a visual presentation. So you choose the one that you like best. And as I said, this lecture gives you an excellent overview of this subfield of linguistics. I think you'll have a good solid foundation in first language acquisition after that lecture. And then finally, in assignment 7.3, you're going to be looking at an article that transitions us from first to second language acquisition. And this is called, Do Children Soak Up Languages Like Sponges? Okay, so as Martin Hilbert tells us, 5 to 6-year-old kids already have most of the grammar knowledge that they need to carry on conversations with adults. They might not have all the social aspects down or the pragmatics down, but they can carry on a conversation with an adult. They have the grammatical ability to do that. So because of that ability, people often assume that children acquire or soak up second languages like sponges. Everybody always says that. And I think there's some truth to that. But this article kind of, looks at a different perspective on that. So after you've read the article, then you'll complete this journal assignment talking about this author's experience with her son acquiring a second language. So do children really soak up second languages as easily as we imagine they do? And do adults actually have any advantages at all when it comes to learning a second language? I would like to think so personally, because I really love learning languages and I want to think that I can keep doing that for many years to come. I hope so. Okay, so those are your 3 assignments for this week. You won't be worrying about any research paper draft, so you can focus your attention on those 3 items. And then next week we'll be getting into second language acquisition. You'll see this video here. It's a TED Talk that's one of my favorites. If you're in French with me this semester, you've already seen this video. So I'll make a little adaptation for you if you've been in French and you've already seen this one, but it's a great one to kick off second language acquisition. Okay, so that's everything for this week. I'll be looking forward to reading through your drafts and sending you your feedback. And once you receive your comments, if you have questions, concerns, or would like to go over any part of your essay draft, don't hesitate to let me know by email or by dropping by virtual office hours. Both methods have been very helpful for several students in the class, so definitely take advantage of that. Okay, so I wish you a great week and see you next week.